ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. On this day of October the 5th, Friday, October the 5th, 7/19/2018 of this year, in accordance with the Gregorian calendar, which agrees with now which we are in the last days of Muharram. Rather, these days are passing by very quickly. We are now initially in the 25th. Oh my goodness. That's what Muslim Pro now advertises, right? That's what they advertise. The 25th of Muharram, which is 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. And in this lesson, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, in which we continue as we finish the chapter in Kitaab At-Tawheed by the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. As we wind down, as we were actually stopped in the Masail, or the matters that was mentioned in the last part of the chapter. If everyone looks, where's your books? You didn't bring your book? Well, you don't. This is what we try to teach our children. We try to teach them is, when you don't have something, try to now go for plan B. This is what we try to instill of our children. Instead of not doing nothing, we try to use our brains. Maybe let me ask to somebody if I can share with them in a book. So you always try to figure out some type of contingency, meaning a backup plan. So you just stick to one thing, and then just sit there and be like, oh, you wait until figure something out. But you always try to have a backup plan. If you don't have your book, then say, let me ask one if I can share with them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Right. So we're in the 25th of Muharram, 1440 after the Hijrah, the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. And we finished the actual matters that was mentioned in the last part of the book, right, everyone? If I'm not mistaken, we actually finalized everything in the chapter, am I right? Right. So now what we say for this chapter before we move on to the next one, notice that the great Imam, the order that he was using. So now, like we said, all these chapters that you see in this book is all given the tafsir of La ilaha illallah. Every single last one of them. After he completed the chapter, if you notice, as it says in the chapter, Bab min ash-shirki yastaghitha bi ghayrillah. From the chapter of polytheism is to put or to seek that istighatha with other than Allah. And we talked about istighatha as a type of worship, rather it's a type of what, everyone? It's a type of dua, as we mentioned, right, everyone? Right. All those different matters that we mentioned is all given the tafsir and the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Every single last one of them. And also likewise the new chapter in which we finished and concluded. If you notice in your books, what does it say? Bab, or the chapter, which that does not create, does not deserve to be a deity worship. Right, everyone? And then you notice that he put in that the great Imam that he put inside of the chapter, all the other narrations that's pertaining to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of how he was wounded and how he received pain and he received grief and all of the different types of elements or feelings or emotions that overtakes a human being while he's in this world. Likewise, he had the same type of what? Disposition. And that was not different of what the human beings are in this world, of what we talked about and discussed before. Based upon that the great Imam al-Shaykh, he put this in the chapter for a specific reason. To educate everyone that the Prophet ﷺ, even though he has this high status, and even though he ﷺ was a messenger and a prophet, and he ﷺ has specific special characteristics that no one shared in as far as in certain affairs, whether it be of marrying more than four wives, or certain affairs as far as how the people used to seek barakah with his sweat, certain characteristics that was only specific to him. However, Allah Ta'ala still affirmed for him the ubudiyyah, affirmed from him of only being a human being, and also like he also likewise was given the duty of worshiping Allah. So he ﷺ is not raised above the level of which Allah Ta'ala has given him, even though he has a high status. A high status as far as of him being revered and being venerated and respected as far as, and also loved ﷺ more than our wealth and our children and even more than ourselves. However, he ﷺ still is not raised to the level of the khasa'is ilahiyah, of the level or the degree of being a deity of worship, just as what happened to the Jews and Christians, where they raised their prophets above their level until they fell into something that they had totally warned them against, which is raising them to the level of being a deity or sharing in the khasa'is ilahiyah, or sharing in the characteristics of being a deity of worship. Either they claim them to be a deity or a mediator or intercessor, or claiming that they share in the traits or the characteristics of Allah Ta'ala. All of that, the great Imam nullified that reality and that false impression by this chapter here. Due to the fact, like we said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ felt pain, felt sadness, grief. He went to the bathroom. He married women. All these are affairs that's not befitting for a deity, because Allah Ta'ala is free of all of those affairs, because they're considered a defect in regards to a deity. As a deity is considered all self-sustaining and independent. Rather, they do not have the characteristic what they call a need. Allah Ta'ala does not have the characteristic of a need. Rather, He Ta'ala is all self-sufficient, but in regards to the human being needs. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had those characteristics of needing. He needed sometimes to be sympathy from his wife, as was Khadija and other than them, when he ﷺ felt sad, or when he felt pain, or when he was wounded in battle, and blood started coming and emanating from his body, and all those other different characteristics that proves that he was just a human being. And that he ﷺ also likewise did not have the characteristic, nor does any human being have the characteristic of what they call khalq. Khalq meaning bringing something from non-existence into existence. As no one is able to do that affair except him subhanahu jalla fil ula. Which shows that the only one that truly deserves to be worshipped is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which you'll find that the human beings, and the greatest of them, meaning the him, the prophets and the messengers, all of them collectively are all great human beings, and they have a tremendous status with Allah and amongst the creation, for those who believe in them, of course. But however, Allah Ta'ala still affirmed for all the messengers and prophets that they are mere ibad. They're all human beings, servants, slaves, and they all been given the duty of worshiping Allah. To let you know that all of them do not deserve any characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or deity worthy of worship. But that was the main reason why the Imam put this in the chapter, setting the record straight in regards to how the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was truly only a human being, and those who were close to him,
from his family who were dear to him and beloved to him, from his closest relatives and his kinship and his family, he told them clearly that I cannot benefit you anything in the least with Allah. And they were the people who are most beloved to him from his family, his closest family who believed in him. And despite of that, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, I cannot have any avail or benefit for you if you do not believe and work righteous actions. As the lineage and the progeny or the background or the famous tribe will not have any benefit if you did not believe in a revelation, nor did you work righteous actions in putting forth those good deeds. So that is the reason why you'll find that the great Imam, just to sum up, put this in the chapter, to let everyone know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is not a deity, nor does he share in the khasa'is al-ilahiyah, nor does he share in the characteristics of the worship of Allah either, whatsoever. Doesn't partake in it, nor does he have any share in it, or he is not a mediator or intercessor, just as the Christians did with Isa ibn Maryam, as they did with Jesus the son of Mary. So after he put this in the chapter, he now followed it up with another chapter. So now he started with who's the greatest of creation, who are the messengers and the prophets. And despite of that, they are human beings that don't deserve to be worshipped. And after them, there's likewise from the greatest of creation, which is the malaika. As we know, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, the angels also likewise is a great creation of Allah, in which Allah Ta'ala created them from light, and we believe that they exist. And inshallah, in this chapter, it gives some descriptions of them. They are not hollow, as certain people believe. You'll find in this chapter it's going to be clear that the angels, that they have an aql, they have intelligence, they have a mind, and they also have hearts in a manner that befits them. As you'll find in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala affirms that the angels have hearts, they have qulub, as it comes in the ayah. And they are not hollow, as a lot of people think of how the non-Muslims gives their description. In certain instances, you'll find that they try to put in some type of perception that they are just hollow images or hollow creatures or just lights or what have you, in which we'll discuss, inshallah, in the chapter here, the reality of the malaika and what is their position. Even the malaika, after the messengers and the prophets, who are the greatest of creation as far as the human beings, and as far as the khalq, then you'll have another type of creation which is considered great, and they have high status with Allah, who are the malaika. As they were also taken as partners with Allah, as you'll find that some of the Arab, or some of the polytheists of the past, used to claim that they were the daughters of Allah. They used to claim that the angels were the daughters, the banat Allah, that they were the daughters of Allah Ta'ala. And you'll find that some of the people used to even worship them, that they used to worship the malaika. And despite of that, notice that the great Imam, that he noticed this type of fitna, in which he now put in Kitaab At-Tawheed in order to refute this claim and nullify this claim that the angels deserve to be worshipped. Rather, they do not deserve to be worshipped. Rather, this claim, as we'll talk about, is something also tremendous in which the people fell into from the past. And also, likewise, we'll talk about as far as the jinn, in light of the hadith that's going to come in the chapter. We start off the ayah, which is in Surah As-Saba. Well, Allah Ta'ala says in his book, well, starts in it, he just mentions a part of it. He says, حَتَّى إِذَا فُزِّعَ عَنْ قُلُوبِهِمْ قَالُوا مَاذَا قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ قَالُوا الْحَقِّ وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْكَبِيرُ. He says, until the heart is removed from their hearts. He says, what did our Lord say? Or what did your Lord say? They say the truth. And he is Ali and he is Al-Kabir. He is the most high. And Allah Ta'ala is bigger than everything, as we'll talk about inshallah. And they say of the meanings of it is two. Some of them say it means kibriya, it means pride. And some of them say that it means that he is actually bigger than everything, in which Allah Ta'ala is bigger than everything, as we'll talk about inshallah. We're just going to discuss that inshallah. Don't worry. Play. This ayah is a part of our ayah. If you look at Surah As-Saba, and I tell everyone to look in the context of the ayah, if you go back to the Mus'haf in the Quran, look to the ayahs that come before it. What are the context of the ayat that comes before this one, that's mentioned in your books? That in the ayat in this chapter, in which the great Imam inaugurated the chapter by mentioning it, he says one part of the ayat which is a Surah As-Saba, if you look in it. If you look to the ayats before that, there's a couple of ayats in which Allah Ta'ala mentions in his book, قُلْ ادْعُوا الَّذِينَ زَعَمْتُم مِّن دُونِهِ لَا يَمْلِكُونَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَلَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا لَهُمْ فِيهِمَا مِنْ شِرْكٍ وَمَا لَهُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ ظَهِيرٍ ولا تنفع الشفاعة عنده إلا لمن أذن له حتى إذا فزع عن قلوبهم قالوا ماذا قال ربكم قالوا الحق وهو العلي الكبير. Allah Ta'ala says in the ayats that come before this one, which is written in your books right now, He says, call on those or invoke who you will, of who you claim, meaning us as deities besides Allah. قُلْ ادْعُوا الَّذِينَ زَعَمْتُمْ, call on them besides Allah. Meaning, warning them not to do it, but however, disparaging and lowering the level of those who are invoked besides Him. Call on those who you claim that shares in the dead characteristics, or who you call on of saying they share with Allah, or they are Allah, or they're mediators or intercessors. Call on them besides Him. Then Allah Ta'ala again uses His rububiyyah. They do not own an atom's weight of anything in the heavens and the earth. And they have وَمَا لَهُمْ فِيهِمَا مِنْ شِرْكٍ وَمَا لَهُمْ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ ظَهِيرٍ. As they have no partners with them, or with anyone to aid them or share with them in His dominion. In His dominion, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. وَمَا لَهُمْ فِيهِمَا مِنْ شِرْكٍ وَمَا لَهُمْ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ ظَهِيرٍ. He says, and He has no type of aid or one who will give Him help in His dominion, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. After that, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala refuted the mushrikeen by establishing Tawheed al-Rububiyyah by His Lordship Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula. Then after that, Allah Ta'ala talks about the shafa'ah, and He negates it. He says, وَلَا تَنْفَعُ الشَّفَاعَةُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا لِمَنْ أَذِنَ لَهُ. As the shafa'ah or the intercessor does not benefit except to the who He gives permission for, until the horror and the fright is removed from the hearts of the malaika. He says, they will say, what did our Lord say? They will say, He said the truth, and He is Al-Ali Al-Kabir. You'll find, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, that some of Ahl Ilm, which we'll discuss inshaAllah, that this ayah was talking about the malaika also likewise. Was speaking about the angels. Because the context is all connected with what was discussed here in this ayah, in everyone's book, if you look at it. It was talking about who, everyone? The malaika, the angels. So if you go back to the ayahs before it, if you look up a little bit, and you look in the Mus'haf, then it does mention and say exactly what I just mentioned. Well, Allah Ta'ala says, call on those who you invoke besides Allah, whether they be from the angels or anyone who it is. So Allah Ta'ala was connecting the context with the malaika. That if you call on them, they don't own anything in the heavens and the earth. وَمَا لَهُمْ فِيهِمَا مِنْ شِرْكٍ. And they do not share with anyone in that. And Allah Ta'ala has no one to aid. Nor does He have an aid or a helper in administrating the affairs of the creation. And also the shafa'ah will not benefit except by His permission. All of these are the affairs of rububiyyah. In order to establish again, what everyone? Al-uluhiyyah. As we talked about, the al-rububiyyah is mentioned in the Quran min bab iqamat al-hujjah. على أنه وحده هو الذي ينفرد بالألوهية لوحده. That is mentioned in the Quran, al-rububiyyah, in order to establish upon the creation that He deserves to be worshipped. And notice Allah uses this as an argument again in His book, and a proof and an evidence against the creation again, that He Ta'ala is the one that deserves to be worshipped alone. When the context, if you look in your books, and it says about the angels, it says until the horror and the fright is removed from them. They will say, what did your Lord say? They will say, Al-Haq wa huwa al-Aliyu al-Kabir. طيب. Notice that it says until the horror or the fright is removed from their hearts. So this is a proof to show that the malaika have qulub, that the angels have hearts. Says it clearly in the ayah, until the horror and the fright is removed from their hearts. And you will find in the ayah, based upon what you read, don't sit like that. Sit better. You will find that it says in them about also the angels that when their fright is removed from their hearts, which is an affirmation of what, everyone? That they truly have hearts. And also likewise, that they understand. If you look in the ayah, what does it say? That they will ask, what did your Lord say? They will say the truth. Which is also an affirmation that the malaika have uqul. They have uqul, that they have minds and they have intellects that they understand with. So the angels have what? They have qulub, they have hearts. And they're also likewise, they have intellects to understand. They have an understanding. And they're not ajwaf or mujawaf or hollow as some of the people from the non-Muslims or the people that try to put this perception in the minds of the people that there's this absolute hollow creatures which have anything, that don't have anything inside of them. Rather, like we said, ya ma'ashal ikhwan, that they have qulub and they have uqul. That they have hearts and also likewise they have intellects to understand. For you'll find that Allah Ta'ala mentions in his book that he says when the horror and the fright is removed from them, meaning from the malaika. For number one that we say, that Allah Ta'ala that he speaks, and from the affair, or that Allah Ta'ala yatakallam, wa yaqul, wa yunadi, that Allah calls out, and that Allah says, and that Allah speaks. And that Allah Ta'ala speaks with a harf and a sawt. That he also Ta'ala speaks with a voice, and also letters that is what? Understood by the people. Or what will be understood on the day of resurrection, which we'll talk about inshallah. So from this, you'll find that it says, what did your Lord say? If you look in the ayah. قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ مَاذَا قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ. What did your Lord, what did he say? All that is the affirmation of al-qawl wal-maqula wal-qawl. Statements, and that Allah Ta'ala also likewise, he says kalimat. He says words that is heard and that is understood and it's with a voice. And also, the Quran, as we know, is letters. And is comprised of letters and words, which the people understand. And you'll find that those words and letters are not created, as we'll talk about inshallah. And you'll find from some of the rudud of Ahl Ilm, from the refutations that they mention about this ayah, that if the speech of Allah was created, they would have said in the ayah, مَاذَا خَلَقَ رَبُّكُمْ. That it would have said in the ayah as the following, like this. Until the heart is removed from their hearts, what did your Lord create? That's what it should have said, if the Quran and the speech of Allah was created. مَاذَا خَلَقَ رَبُّكُمْ. But it didn't say that. It said, what did your Lord say? It did not say, what did your Lord create? As has been mentioned in Sunnah ibn Majah, it talks about كَأَنَّ الصَّوْتَ الْمَسْمُوعُ. Go back a little bit. He says, from what is extracted, as we'll talk about inshaAllah, it says, وَقَوْلُهُ قَالُوا مَاذَا قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ. That they did not say, what did your Lord, or what did our Lord create? If the speech of Allah Ta'ala was created, they would have said, what did he create? Instead of saying, what did he say? Because if that was the correct aqeedah and belief, then that's what would have been mentioned in the ayah, instead of saying, what did he say? Tabaraka wa ta'ala. As all of that will come in a short period of time, inshallah. But as we mentioned, it said, number one, based upon the ayah, Allah Ta'ala calls out yunadi, as he will call out on the day of resurrection. And Allah Ta'ala, he speaks. And Allah Ta'ala, he speaks kalimat, as we'll talk about inshaAllah. That he Ta'ala speaks with a harf and a sawt. He speaks with letters and a voice that is understood. And everyone will understand their reckoning on the day of resurrection. As we'll talk about inshaAllah. تفضل. حياكم الله بياكم حياكم الله بياكم يكسر في امان الله رافقتكم السلامة. طيب. I'm sorry. A voice and letters. يتكلم بالحرف والصوت. Allah speaks with letters and a voice. Words too. harf and a sot. He speaks with letters. Letters make comprise of, they comprise of what? Words. Allah wa ta'ala speaks kalimat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks kalimat, no doubt. لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا. Allah wa ta'ala says in the last, from the last ayah of Surah Al-Kahf, لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي, لكلمات my Lord, لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي, the words of my Lord. And also in the dua that one says at night when he wants to seek refuge, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات, I seek refuge in the perfect words of Allah from the evil He created. So Allah Ta'ala speaks words, that's no doubt. Right. So what we say in regards to what we've been explaining now, it says until the horror and the fright is removed from their hearts, it's to let you know that Allah Ta'ala also speaks. And speech is part of His characteristics. And it is not created. Rather, speech, Allah Ta'ala speaks, and it's a characteristic of His essence, and it's a characteristic of His actions, both. In contrast to the Asha'ira, in contrast to the deviant sect called the Asha'ira, as they believe that it is created. Also, the Mu'tazila, likewise. So we say in regards to the speech of Allah Ta'ala, that is from His characteristics of His essence, and is from the characteristics of His actions, both. Both of them. As far as the speech of Allah, then those who deny it, or those who try to twist its meaning, are from two people. Or from the deviant sects who negate it. Or they try to play games with it. From them is the Mu'tazila. As the Mu'tazila believe that the Quran or the speech of Allah is created, it's makhlooq. Then you have the Asha'ira likewise, who share in the belief of the Mu'tazila that the speech of Allah likewise is created. Also likewise they play games. Rather you'll find that they say that the speech of Allah Ta'ala is not something that is done with words. Rather they say it's the speech that's done inwardly in oneself, which is confusing, which absolutely doesn't make any sense. They say it's the speech that's done inwardly in oneself. They call it kalamu nafs or kalamu nafsi. That's what they call it, the speech that's done inwardly in oneself. As that's the speech of the Asha'ira who say that. They say that the speech of Allah Ta'ala is kalamu nafs. It's the speech that's done inwardly in oneself. Rather, it's not done with words or voice. As they do not believe that, nor do they affirm that. Rather, they say, like we said, that Allah Ta'ala's speech is not speech which is done of what we consider words that what emanate from the creation, or verbal words, as they say. Because they said that would necessitate that Allah Ta'ala will have to have body parts, such as the human being. And for that reason, they say, Allah doesn't speak words of what they call lovely, wordings that is done with actual what? Of what we will understand as words that are what? Said or spoken. Rather, they say that the speech of Allah is the speech that's done inwardly in oneself. And it's not what? Considered kalamun lovely. That is done with the what? That is malfuz. Meaning that it's verbal, or it's done with what? It's understand as words. They say that we don't believe that. We don't affirm that. Why do they say that? Why do they negate that? They negate that because they think that the speech of Allah Ta'ala, that من لوازم صفات المخلوق تستلزم صفات الخالق. As you'll find from the qa'idah that they try to use. They say that to affirm for Allah's speech or words or sentences or these affairs, all of this necessitates that you have to affirm for Allah the same needs or characteristics that human beings have in order to what? Speak. Which is not the case. That's what they say. And that for that reason they twist the meaning of the word speech. And they play games. The Asha'ira. So they say, number one, that it's not actual words that's done as what we understand, which is uttered, or words that is spoken, or words that is what? Utilized that people want to understand as verbal words, or words that is wording that is done. Rather, they say that's not speech that we affirm. The speech that we affirm is that which is done inwardly in oneself. Then we ask them, why do you negate the speech of Allah and say that it's something that's done inwardly in oneself? Why? They say because if we affirm the speech of Allah, that is words, or it's a voice, or it's letters, and all of those matters that you affirm, that necessitates that we have to say that Allah has body parts like us. For example, like a tongue, like a mouth, like a lips, and Allah Ta'ala is raised high above of having these characteristics. Allah does not have lips, blood, veins, a tongue, jaws to speak. And for that reason, we say that kalam, or the speech of Allah, is not true speech. It's speech that's done inwardly. That brings us to now affirm the qa'id of Ahl Sunnah. Where you'll find that Ahl Sunnah come with the principle which is Sifatul Makhluqeen La Tastalzim Sifat al-Khaliq. That the characteristics of the creation, in order to have its characteristics, does not necessitate that Allah Ta'ala has those same lawazim, those same needs in order to have His characteristics. For verily, that's befitting for the human being. Number one, the human being needs lips. The human being needs a tongue. The human being needs veins and blood and the jaws and the tongue and lips to have the characteristics of speech. Not Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala does not have these lawazim. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does not have, nor does He need anything. And Allah Ta'ala does not need to have the characteristics of the creation in order to have certain characteristics. For example, if you ask the Asha'ira, as they affirm the characteristics of what they call as-sam' wal-basar, the Asha'ira, that they believe that they affirm the characteristics that Allah is all hearing and that Allah Ta'ala is all what? Is all seeing. You affirm that, O Asha'ira. So what's the difference between here and this characteristic? As you affirm that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is all seeing and saying that befits Allah, whereas He sees everything simultaneously, nothing escapes His knowledge. And despite of that, you do not say that Allah needs the eyes, or He needs the veins, or He needs the blood, or He needs pupils, and all these are matters in order to affirm that characteristic in which you affirm. And likewise, similar to what? Hearing. Because we know that the Asha'ira, that they affirm 7 characteristics, and they affirm others. But the main characteristics that they affirm, the deviant sect called the Asha'ira Kaden, the deviant sect called the Asha'ira, that they affirm 7 characteristics. As he comes in the poetry, هو الكلام الحياة والكلام والبصر سمع إرادة وعلم واقتدر. They affirm 7. Don't write this down. Don't write it down. As we know, the Asha'ira, that they affirm 7 characteristics. 7 characteristics of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, where they say in the poetry, هو الحياة والكلام والبصر سمع إرادة وعلم واقتدر. They affirm 7. They affirm life, al-haya. They affirm all hearing, and that Allah is all seeing. And the other 7, which I don't have time to speak about right now. The point of the matter is what? They affirm what, everyone? That Allah is all hearing, and that Allah is all seeing. They affirm that. طيب. We say that you Asha'ira affirm this. And at the same time, you apply the qa'id of Ahl Sunnah in this regard. Where you say, these phones are irritating. And we say in this regard, you have now adhered to the qa'id of Ahl Sunnah and these 2 characteristics. Al-Haya was Sama'. You say, طيب, in order for Allah having these characteristics, He does not have to have the needs of the creation in order for us to affirm that Allah is all hearing, all seeing. That's what they say. طيب, so they go back to the principle of the people of the truth in affirming these characteristics. But they don't do it for what? For speech. And we say to them, what's the difference between speech? And what's the difference between the other characteristics that you affirm of life and also likewise what? Of being all-seeing. You say that Allah, in order to have the characteristics of being all-seeing and all-hearing, that He does not have to have eyes that have veins or bloods or a pupil or what have you. Or that He has to have ears with an eardrum and blood running through it. And despite of that, you affirm the characteristic. What's the difference of why you can't say now in regards to kalam? To say that Allah has speech that is heard, and that is words, and that is His sentences, and that is His statements. That is understood with a voice and letters. And affirm the same things that you affirm for hearing and being all seeing, apply the same qaida and principle up to speech. What's the difference? And apply all of it so it won't be confusing. But they won't do that. And that's what we say that with a person, that he falls into tanaqud and being contradictive for the one who opposes Kitab and Sunnah. For a person that opposes Kitab and Sunnah, he's going to fall into contradictions. As far as Ahl Sunnah, everything is clear. The aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah is clear as the sun in the sky. It doesn't take a rocket scientist genius to understand that Allah Ta'ala has characteristics. He does not have any type of lawazim of what the creation needs in order to have their characteristics. The lawazim of the sifat or lawazim al-makhluqeen la tastalzim sifat al-khaliq. That's a principle that everyone should write down. The principle is the needs of what the creation have for their characteristics does not necessitate that Allah have those same needs for His characteristics. I'll say it one more time. The characteristics that the creation needs, or what the creation needs for its characteristics, does not necessitate that Allah has those same lawazim, those same needs for His characteristics. Just go back to the recording. So, for example, what did I just say? For example, the creation, what do they need to speak, everyone? Just understand. Just understand that you can write it yourself. What does the creation need to have? Sight. They have to have pupils. They have to have blood running through their eyes. They have to have veins running through it. For as far as your ears, what do they have to have sound hearing? They have to have an eardrum. They have to have blood running through it and veins running through it. All those are the lawazim of what? The creation. Same thing to speech. Same thing. What does the creation have to have in order to speak? They have to have a tongue. They have to have blood. They have to have veins. They have to have lips. Those same lawazim, do we now apply that for Allah for Him to have those characteristics? No. Allah does not have any type of need of anything. He does not have veins or blood or anything in order to have the characteristic of all hearing or all sight or speech. Allah does not have those lawazim. Those lawazim or those needs such as blood, veins, eardrum, pupil, lips, jaws, teeth, a tongue, all of that Allah Ta'ala is free of. And He does not need anything in order to have the characteristics that He has Ta'ala. Rather, that's only befitting for the creation. And we'll talk about Tafadhal, you call you there. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Is it clear, Camden? You just saying it? Camden? You said no? You said, oh, okay. Where's Zakaria? Just wait for you there, I'm sorry. La ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? Now you hot again? Well, somebody's hot? Now you getting warm? طيب. What was the question before we continue? Tafadhal, Abdullah. Lawazim means needs in this context. It means needs. So that lawazim means needs here. So the lawazim صفات المخلوقين لا تستلزم صفات الخالق. You'll find that as a qaida Ahl Sunnah, in which we utilize in order to refute the Asha'ira and other than them, that you'll find that this qaida repeats itself in a lot of different instances, in affirming certain characteristics in which the Asha'ira oppose it, and as a result of it they fall into the misguidance that they fall into. Such as, like we said, they do not affirm speech for Allah being actual speech, what we understand of being words, sentences, and statements. They say no, that's verbal statements, which is done with speech. And Allah Ta'ala is free of having a mouth, or blood, or tongue, or what have you. That's the reason why they say and they deny that characteristic, rather they change it and twist it. They say, okay, we affirm speech, but do you say that it's words? Do you say there's letters? Do you say it's done with a voice? And do you say that it's done with the words and what we understood, which is lovely, which is uttered? Do you say that? No. They say that the speech of Allah is inward speech that's done inside of oneself. Meaning that similar to what the human being has of thoughts. That's what they say. It's similar to thoughts, inward thoughts of what you would think of speech. That's what they say, basically. طيب. And this is when Shaykh al-Islam and his Tilmid Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, came with this principle in order to refute that notion. They say that the characteristics of the creation, their needs that they have for their characteristics, does not necessitate that Allah have the same needs in order to affirm His characteristics. And a person would say, but what's the evidence from Kitaab and Sunnah for this principle? There's a lot. From them, if we affirm that Allah created something from the creation that can speak without those same lawazim, how can you not affirm that for Allah? What do I mean by that? There are certain affairs from Allah created and has characteristics of speech, and they don't even have the same lawazim of the creation. They don't have the same needs of the creation. For example, which comes in the Sahihain and the Bukhari and Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ said that he was in Mecca and he passed by and he heard a rock give him salam. Salamu alaykum. When do we know that a rock has blood? When do we know that a rock has skin? When do you know that a rock has lips? When do you know that a rock has a tongue? It doesn't have all of that, and it still spoke. So Allah created certain things from the creation that don't need the lawazim of the human being to have the characteristics of speech. And despite of that, it had the characteristic, and it did not have that lawazim. That's for something that's created. So if you think that's not far off from something that's created, then how can you not say and affirm that that same thing could be from the one who's not created, who's Allah? And even from, as we know, that on the day of resurrection, that the whole earth will speak. The earth will speak. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وَإِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا. On the day that it will what? It will speak what took place on it. It will speak. When do we know that the earth to have blood, to have veins, to what? To have a tongue, to have a jaw to the end of it in order to have the characteristic of what? Of hadith, of speech. And despite of that, Allah is going to allow it to speak. That's something that's created, Allah. Created. And it had the characteristics, it has the characteristic of speech, and it does not have the lawazim of the creation of the human beings in order to have the characteristic. And there's a lot, we can go on and all day, of how, even for example, when the message of Allah, even when, also comes in the Sahihain, when the Bukhari and Muslim, the hadith is authentic. And the Asha'ira noted that when the message of Allah, when he was removed from, given the khutbah on Jumu'ah, from the Jid'in Nakhla, from the date palm tree who used to like hearing the remembrance, until they started to hear its moaning. They started to hear it moaning. When do we know that a tree or something of a date palm can actually moan? And despite of that, it did not have no lungs. It doesn't have a body. It doesn't have rib cage. It doesn't have breath. It doesn't have a tongue. And despite of that, it had the characteristic. There are things that Allah created that does not have the lawazim. The same thing, the characteristic that the human being needs, that from the creation of Allah, that don't have those same lawazim, even though it has the same characteristic. If this is the case about something Allah created, why can't you affirm that for Allah, Asha'ira? This is the hujjah that he used against them, in order to say, you know and I know that these narrations are authentic. It's in Bukhari and Muslim, it's in the Sahihain. You can't deny it. And despite of that, the creation that we find, it's other ayat and other ahadith and all I'm talking about. And despite of that, these narrations that affirm that there are affairs from the creation, there are things from the creation that has the characteristics of speech. It has the characteristic of speech, and it did not have those lawazim, those needs that the creation, or meaning the human beings, have in order to have the characteristics of speech. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's what he utilizes them to refute. The Asha'ira and their notion, when they play around with the what? Play around with the characteristics of kalam, of speech. Like we said, the Asha'ira, they believe that the speech of Allah is speech that's done inwardly, similar to what human beings has of inward thoughts. That's what they basically try to say, which absolutely is confusing, and it has no dalil for it. There's no evidence to prove for it. It's baseless. And also you'll find from the belief of the Asha'ira that they believe that the Quran is makhluq. They believe that the Quran is created. It's also from the belief of the Asha'ira. So like we said, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, of which you'll find of the Mu'tazila, as we said, believing that the Quran and the speech of Allah is makhluq. The Asha'ira also likewise. As you'll find, Bayjuri even mentions it in his Sanusiya. And the Sanusiya, which is also mentioned in what they call Yaqeen al-Arba'iniyat lil-Buti. Al-Buti also referred it back to what they call Jawharat At-Tawheed, and also Sanusiya, but Bayjuri, which is from their books that is Muqaddas. That's considered a book with the Asha'ira that, anyway, you guys are sidetracked. Anyway. Yaqeen al-Arba'iniyat al-Yaqeen al-Arba'iniyat, which it was also authored by, rather, a Sanusiya was by Bayjuri. A Sanusiya is the book that the Asha'ira that they glorify. It's called As-Sanusiya. As-Sanusiya by Al-Bayjuri. And also, what E.G. mentioned this book called, keep it in. Which you'll find that the Asha'ira that they mentioned in a book called Sanusiya by Bayjuri. There's another book that they also glorify, which is called Jawharat At-Tawheed. It's another book that they glorify. The Asha'ira. The Asha'ira glorify that book to the point where they, in those books, there's no characteristics that they play games with more than the speech of Allah. As far as the characteristic speech, they play a bunch of games. And another speech, that which we're going to talk about, inshallah, that they're frank in negating, in denying, which is Allah's being above the creation. That they're frank in. They'll tell you straight to your face, nope, we don't believe that Allah is above the heavens. Absolutely not. Say it again. We'll get inside the details. There's no characteristics that the Asha'ira are frank with in negating except the ulu, other than the ulu of Allah. The aboveness and the highness and Allah being above His creation. They're frank. They'll say that Allah Ta'ala is not above the creation, clearly. You'll find that the Muslims, it's sad to say in these days and times, that they're either between one of three affairs in regards to deviating in this mu'taqad, in this belief. You'll find that some of the Muslims, they either believe that Allah is everywhere, or you'll find that they say that Allah Ta'ala exists without a place. Meaning that Allah Ta'ala is not to the right, that He's not to the left, nor is He above, nor is He under. Or you'll find that the Muslims that they say that the arsh and al-farsh bima'na al-ard kulluha ala haddin sawa. Or they'll say that the arsh and al-farsh, that the heavens and the earth are all the same. Don't try to say that Allah is above. You'll find that a lot of Muslims deviated in this i'tiqad, in this belief, by one of these three type of corruptive ideologies, which is all incorrect. As the affair that Allah Ta'ala is above the creation, which we'll discuss inshaAllah, of Him having ulu, being above of the creation, is something that's established by the Kitaab, the Sunnah, the Ijma' and the Fitrah. It's something that's established by the Book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the consensus of the Sahaba and the ulama after them, and the Tabi'een. But we start with when we say Ijma', we always start with the Sahaba. The Sahaba is something that's been established upon and agreed upon. It's a consensus amongst the companions. And it's something that's a natural disposition and inclination of every human being. Every human being instinctively, by their natural disposition and their innate nature of how they created, believe that Allah is above. There's something that's instinctively Allah put in every human being. That if you was left alone in an island or on a land, in a remote distant island somewhere, you were far away from the creation, and your mind was not influenced by anything or anyone or any type of corrupted ideology, you will believe that Allah exists, that Allah deserves to be worshipped alone, and that automatically He is above. What is the proof of that? The proof of that is in the hadith of Mu'awiyah al-Hakim al-Sulami, which is also in Sahih Muslim, where you'll find of the Jariyah, the female who did not know anything, rarely even knew Arabic. The female concubine who came to the one who was in charge of her master slapped her until he felt bad and he went to the Messenger of Allah. He said, "You smacked her?" He says, "Oh yes, so Messenger of Allah." He said, "Bring her here." Keep in mind that she was uneducated, didn't know anything, barely knew Arabic. The Prophet ﷺ asked her, "Who am I? Where is Allah?" She pointed to the heavens and said, "What? Above the heavens." Where did she know that? She was educated. Where did she know that, everyone? By her natural disposition as a human being. By her natural and innate nature. You'll find that the Ahl Ilm say that is a proof that Allah being above is something of a natural inclination that Allah instilled inside the human being if their fitrah or their natural disposition is intact, hasn't been affected by some corrupted ideologies of this world or corrupted beliefs of this world. If they was left in an island by themselves in a desolate place or remote distance place, left alone, and nothing corrupted it from the different types of ways and beliefs out there, they would know that Allah exists and that Allah is above and that Allah deserves to be worshipped, and they would direct their worship to the ones above them, naturally. So what time do we have to? What time did it come in? No, I think some of the people want to pray. Those are the things that we would never do in the class. Hey man, come on, don't put me on the spot. You want to stop class? Man, why you gotta make me the bad wolf? I don't want to say yes. I don't want to say no. Just keep me out of it. Keep me out of it. Don't make me the bad guy. Actually, so if I said yes, so everybody be mad at me. Yeah, I want to pray now. So everybody be like, "Come on, Ak." So now I gotta be the bad guy if I say yes. So that's the reason why everybody's gonna say what? No. You're gonna take me as the bad guy. See, Salahuddin took the high road. Salahuddin took the high road. Oh, it's no problem because it is getting a little bit late. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Notice that the aqeedah of Ahl-Sunnah, it makes sense when you hear this. Everything that you say is like, it makes sense. Allah's above. Allah is above the heavens. It makes sense. It's not confusing. It makes sense because this is what Allah put in the human being. The aqeedah of the Sha'ir or Mu'tazili, that's confusing. He exists in a place without a place. He's not above. He's in everything. He's not to the left. He's not to the right. He's not to the left. He's not to the right. He's not above, nor is he under. Person hears that type of belief system, they're going to be confused. They're going to be in a state of bewilderment. I don't understand. You'll find that Ahl Ilm that they refute that ambiguity by saying, if you say that Allah is not above and that Allah is not under and that He's not to the right nor to the left, you just gave a detailed definition of something that does not exist. How do you exist? How, if I wanted to ask you something that don't exist, describe it to me. It's not above, it's not under, it's not to the right, it's not to the left. That means that it don't exist. You understand? So that's what we're saying. All the different aqa'id of beliefs is all confusing. It's confusing. To the point, this is the reason why Ahlul Sunnah warns against bid'ah, because bid'ah, it brings doubt in oneself. The end result of it, it brings doubt. That's why you'll find that Ahlul Sunnah used to warn against it, because these type of ideologies eventually will put some doubt in you, which will deviate as a result of it, because it's confusing. As in regards to the aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah, when you hear it, it's like it puts yaqeen in you, it puts surety in you, because it makes sense. You understand, everyone? And it agrees with the jibillah or the sajiyah, or the natural disposition of the human being. We'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue Sunday. Any questions about the lesson? تفضل أبغى تقاي عمر. تفضل الجمهور. Absolutely. Well, we don't necessarily say. I don't know anything. We have to always stick to the words of what the Salaf mentioned about the Malaika, and we stick to that. And stick to what the Sahaba said about them, and always say the exact statements that they say in regards to our belief in certain affairs of the unseen. As far as the angels, we say that they have hearts, they have a mind. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did create them exclusively for His worship and for His obedience. But that does not remove out or rule out that they don't have minds to understand. Because there's other ayahs that prove that they asked Allah certain questions, which let you understand, let you know that they do understand, comprehend. For example, إذ قال الله إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. Excuse me. قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك. قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, He says, hence when your Lord said, verily I'm going to make a khalifa in the earth. Notice that the angels asked the question to let you know that they understand. He says, أَتَجَعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء. Are you going to make in it those who what? Spread corruption and shed blood, and we glorify your praise, and we also and we also venerate you, and we praise you. So verily I know what you do not know. Like, that is to show that the Malaika are not like, from what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamal, that you're saying that maybe certain people might think they're like robots. No, they're not. We will say that the Malaika, they have minds, and they do have hearts, and they understand. Because also likewise, this ayah shows that they have fear, and they have horror, and they have fright. Let me finish my point. That they have horror and they have fright. Because it says in the ayah, in the book, what does it say? It says that to the heart, the horror is removed from them, because they hear of the speech of Allah. And it also says they asked each other, what did your Lord say? They said, He said the truth. To let you know they're not like robots, rather they do have understanding. And the ayah where it says they ask Allah a question. Are you going to make in it those who what? Corrupt, spread corruption, and shed the blood of the people, or shed blood. All this is to show that what? They comprehend, they understand. And also on the day of resurrection, Allah Ta'ala says in the ayah, that when He says about the Malaika, when He brings them forth, He says, أَهَؤُلَاءِ إِيَّاكُمْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ, that the angels will say, Subhanaka, He said, Subhanaka anta waliyuna min dunihim bal kanu ya'budun al-jinn أكثر بهم مؤمنون فاليوم لا يملك بعضكم لبعض نفعا ولا ضرا ونقول للذين ظلموا ذوقوا عذاب النار الذي كنتم بها تكذبون آية. Allah Ta'ala is going to bring the angels and say to them, He says, did you tell the people it's you who they used to worship? What are they going to say? Subhanaka anta waliyuna min dunihim bal kanu ya'budun al-jinn أكثر بهم مؤمنون. That the angels would say, glory be to you. You were their wali besides us. He said, rather they used to worship the jinn. Majority of them believed in them. So that shows what? They understand. They have comprehension. And even though they've been commanded to worship Allah alone, and that's what they've been created for, does not rule out now that they do not what? Have minds that they comprehend with. And that's been affirmed Kitaab and Sunnah, that the angels what? That they do comprehend, and that they do understand. It's a lot of ahadith. The Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel came to the Messenger of Allah and spoke to him. And he also conversed with Jibreel. When Jibreel said, give salam, or gave salams. And we know the hadith of Jibreel, when Jibreel came to the Messenger of Allah and asked him what? Asked him the hadith and the questions. And the Prophet ﷺ what? He answered it, and Jibreel confirmed it. He said, Sadaq. He's spoken the truth. All that's to show what? That they have minds, they comprehend, they understand, even though they only been created for the worship of Allah Ta'ala and obeying His commands. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Any questions about that question, Umar? No, we don't say that. No, that's not. I think that was the question. Also, the question is like, for example, do they have the ability to disobey? Keep in mind what I mentioned last class, everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed perfectly everything we need to know of what's going to benefit our own souls. To ask a question, no, that's towards you. To ask a question, for example, do the angels have the ability to what? To disobey? First, of course, we know Kitaab and Sunnah, that's clear. Allah Ta'ala says, He says, as He said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ عَلَيْهَا مَلَائِكَةٌ غِلَاظٌ شِدَادٌ لَا يَعْصُونَ اللَّهَ مَا أَمَرَهُمْ وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. As we know, Allah Ta'ala talks about the malaika, they do not disobey what Allah has commanded them, rather they do what He's commanded. So that's clear that they do not what? Disobey Allah. And on top of that, keep in mind, the questions that we ask, make sure, like we said, they're questions, relevant questions, of course, everyone. But Allah Ta'ala has revealed to us what we need to get to Jannah. As far as certain questions that we try to go deep in, whether it be cars in paradise, whether it be women that can I have some certain women that's brown? Can I get certain women that's light skinned? Can I get certain women that's chocolate? Can I get all that is irrelevant. First of all, ask Allah and then Allah, as we know in the Quran and Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ had even heard for someone transgressing in dua. And to Abdullah ibn Mughaffal taught that to his son. He said, oh, my son, what? Ask Allah for paradise, seek refuge in hell. Verily, I heard from the Messenger of Allah, there will be people from our ummah that would transgress in dua and in purification. So transgressing in dua is like this, asking Allah for certain things that, at the end of the day, it's considered transgressing in dua. Oh Allah, grant me 20,000 Mercedes-Benz with leather interior that's flawless, with rims that are glowing, and give me a house, a paradise that's maybe the rooftop is glass and there's fish underneath it and it's a water running underneath it, and or also give me some women that some of them are wearing these type of clothes, and that's all transgression in dua. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? It's called transgressing in dua. And it's a form in which the Messenger of Allah made it a sin. And He also made it as a means for your dua not being answered. Transgressing in dua. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So Abdullah ibn Mughaffal heard this from his son. What did he say? Oh, my son. Because he said, listen to the dua his son made. He said, oh Allah, he said, inni as'aluka. He says, al-qasr al-abyad an yamin al-jannah in dakhaltuha. He said, I asked you for a white castle on the right side of paradise if I was to enter it. So he heard his son saying it. He said, oh, my son. He said, ask Allah for paradise and seek refuge in Allah from hell. Verily, I heard from the Messenger of Allah, there are going to be people that's going to transgress in dua. So all these type of affairs, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, if what Allah has given us is enough, We do not need to ask, for example, Isa is in paradise. How is he in paradise? How is it that he's living all these years, even though that Allah rose him, or he raised him up to him? So that means from the time he died all the way up to now, until the last days and times, he didn't die. So how's he living? How's he leaving food? Even though he's a human being, and Allah that he raised him, and he's been in the years, all these years have passed, he's been up, and how's he living? And where is he living exactly? And how's he get the nutrients even though he didn't die and he's still in the form of a human? All these things are what, brothers? These are questions that Allah has kept hidden from us, not out of forgetfulness, but know that those affairs are not going to what? It's not going to have any benefit for your iman, your preparation for death. You can say people takalluf in general. People that go beyond the bounds and burdening themselves with things that have no benefit. You understand what I'm saying? Even of Jesus being raised up to Allah is a refutation against the Christians. Because it proves and show that Jesus never died on the cross. He didn't. Because Allah saved Jesus before they caught him. Before they actually carried out their plot, Allah fulfilled their plan by saving his prophet and noble messenger before they caught him. So Allah rose him up, and he put the resemblance on another individual, and they say that was from the apostles of Isa. It was from the Hawariyin, that it was a young youth, that Allah casted the resemblance over him, as it says in the tafsir. That they cast the resemblance on him, and they killed him in his place, thinking that was Jesus, the son of Mary. So they thought they actually killed him, but in actuality they didn't. Allah foiled their plot to let you know that Jesus was never humiliated with horns being put on his head and being nailed to a cross by uttering statements of kufr, such as, my father, my God, or my father, why hast thou forsaken me? That was a statement of kufr that they say and they claim that he uttered. All that, that's all blasphemy that Allah refuted in his book. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So the practice, you see Christians walking around with crosses on their neck, is baseless, because Jesus never even died on it. So why are you wearing it? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Tafadhal, I'm sorry. Say it again. I just... No, just leave him. Calm down, I'll talk to you after class, okay? We gotta pray. Tafadhal. Patience, brother. Patience. Don't make him feel. I want him to feel comfortable. Tafadhal. Don't look at him. You're gonna make him. Say it again. I couldn't hear you carefully. Allah pick his angels. Does he pick him? How does he pick them? But there's no prophets from the angels, and there's no angels from the prophets. The prophets are human beings. And even Allah talks about that in his book. He refutes that notion of talking about if he would have sent a messenger or a prophet, it would have been a human being. It wouldn't have been an angel. So the angels are a separate creation, and the human beings are a separate creation. And Allah created the angels from light, and we know that they don't disobey His command, and that the prophets and the messengers are human beings, and that they also have been given appointed their duty to carry out for delivering the message and the revelation. Is it clear what I'm saying? And that we know that angels do have certain duties, which I'll talk about later, and I'll also discuss with you on the side after the salat. Okay. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك